Hello and welcome to the show. For our first FailRace versus the community on Forza 6, I had elected to run open C-Class cars, and of course our first race was going to go to Hockenheim Short. This track was the venue for many a close race on Forza 4, and I was hoping that the incredible action would return. And, well, the first few corners were anything to go by. Yeah, everybody was too wide. This is such a fantastic track for racing because there are so many good overtaking spots as I managed to outdrag a Lotus out of turn 2, pull up alongside, can beat him to the next corner. Unfortunately, a Volvo would get turned around and then flip across the grass in the background. Yeah, this track produced so many good battles in Forza 4 and was hoping it would continue, and you know, everybody was too wide. In this first lap, everywhere you looked there were cars too wide. Incredibly hard to pick where on earth to watch the action from. This Mazda Cosmo had made a very, very good start, come from quite a way down the order, and would get himself up into third after the Nissan ran a little bit wide through turn 1. That would be fairly straightforward into the second corner for the Mazda. He was then catching up to the back of a Subaru. The Subaru very quick in a straight line, but was struggling through the turns. You can see he's fighting the car as it was just sliding around a little bit too much. That left a relatively large gap on the inside. Mazda didn't need a second invitation, stuck his car up the inside and would get the position. Leading the way at this stage was a Jeep Wagoneer, had managed to break away while the rest of us squabbled. Said Subaru would have a bit of a coming together with the Audi. They would drop back through the field, and then they would continue a race-long battle between them, and an Alfa 155 would get involved in the middle of it as well. Again, we see the Subaru was just struggling a little bit for grip around the second to last corner, slides out very wide. That gives him a very compromised line for the final turn. A far too shallow a line on the way in means the Alfa can get up the inside on the exit. However, the Subaru does have the straight line speed to simply outdrag the Alfa down to turn 1. The Alfa's on two wheels on the inside curb. Everybody's exploring the limits of the track. Lots of cars going on two wheels when you cross over the curb. The Alfa then does try and get to the inside, but it's just going to get outdragged by the Subaru the second that they get anywhere near the straight. The curbs at Hockenheim are very, very vicious. Plenty of cars were getting up on two wheels, including my Alfa from time to time. Yeah, I got involved in a little bit of a bump on lap 1. I tried this manoeuvre. My favourite overtaking manoeuvre is to have a dive up the inside at the second to last corner. Can catch people out really well. Great place to get past is done. However, I came off slightly worse of a bump with an Audi that dropped me through the field, but I was on a recovery drive with a very, very quick Alfa. And while up the inside at the second to last corner didn't work on the Nissan, I could simply outdrag him around the final turn. Again, we see cars bounced up onto two wheels. In my case, I think the Nissan got airborne across the curbing at turn 1. Again, released from being stuck behind the Silvia. Wasn't long before I'd catch up to the Elise. Had a go at being brave around the outside of the hairpin. That one there didn't quite come off, but I would finally get my favourite overtaking manoeuvre to work here. Just cut back to the inside towards the second to last corner. So much speed in this Alfa that I can out-accelerate the Lotus to that corner. However, it does mean you end up taking quite a shallow line through the final turn, and the Elise has enough grip to hold it around the outside, but doesn't have the straight line speed of the mighty Alfa. So again, I can simply outdrag him down towards turn 1, and again we get the Alfa, not quite as much on two wheels this time, but yeah, that curb was an ever-present danger at the front, and the Jeep had led for a large part of the early laps, admittedly helped while the rest of us sort of squabbled and sorted out our positions. As the race sort of drew on, the Mazda and the Focus would catch up to the Wagoneer, and it was now a three-way battle for the lead. Admittedly, wasn't quite expecting the Jeep to be leading, but there we go. It was a very difficult car to find a way past. I mean, it's a huge, great big vehicle, and it had quite a lot of straight line speed, which meant getting past it was the Mazda was really having trouble trying to find a way past the Jeep. And of course, the more they all slowed each other down, the more it actually helped out me. I was in fourth at this moment in time and was quickly catching this group. The Mazda got a good run out of the final turn, and despite the Jeep's straight line speed, they'd be side by side on the way into turn 1. Jeep would get a big sideways twitch through the first corner. Still side by side, and because the Mazda had taken such a shallow line, the Focus had the best run of all of them, and it was 3 wide through turn 2. And the Focus, fantastically opportunistic overtaking manoeuvre that one. Just took a much better line through the first corner and got the bear of them into the second turn, and still the Mazda and Jeep are squabbling over what is now second position. The Jeep tried to keep it around the outside. You can, if you can keep it alongside around the outside of that very fast corner, you can make up the position because you'll be on the inside for the next bit, but the Jeep didn't quite have the grip to make it all work. And these guys really were fighting very, very hard over the lead. The Focus leading, the Mazda was doing everything he could to try and get past. And the thing was, they started fighting so much that they could never really break away from the Jeep. Again, once you start attacking and having to defend, and so you slow each other down, and the Jeep was relishing the possibility of getting his lead back. The Mazda going for an incredibly long way around the outside, and he stays around the outside. This is a really tough corner to go too wide through. Such a fast turn, and there's very little room for error. You stick a wheel out on the sand over there and you're in a lot of trouble. However, the Mazda kept it all the way around the outside of 2 very, very long corners. It put him on the inside for the hairpin, and that was the Mazda up to the lead. And you can see how them 3-4 corners, the Jeep's suddenly back in the group, and you can see how much closer my Alpha had got. Yeah, it was an absolutely incredible battle at the front with these 3 vehicles, and well, as you can imagine, it didn't really end there. As we came on to the final lap, the Focus was looking for a way back past. The Jeep was right in there as well. I just slightly ran out of laps to really do anything about making an impact on this battle, but if they all ran into each other, I would gladly inherit the lead. The Mazda was a little bit slow coming down towards the hairpin, not quite sure. The Focus just got much better run down here. The Mazda having to go defensive into the hairpin. You take a little bit of a shallower line again. Once you start defending, you slow yourself down. Focus gets a really good run out of the hairpin. He's up alongside, and he has a dive into the second to last corner. A little bit of a locking of the brakes there, and in having a dive, you do tend to run wide for the final corner. Mazda tries to get up the inside, hits the curb, gets really sideways, and while the Focus would go on to take the victory, the Jeep would pounce and get a second place. The Wagoneer would come in second. It was a fantastic battle at the front between them 3. Sad that I ran out of laps and made a couple of silly mistakes. I got big sideways moments in the Alpha, so I couldn't quite join in the battle, but yeah, it was fantastic fun to watch that one unfold. Further back, there was another very close finish. A Clio and an RX-7 Buzzbox had been fighting throughout most of this race. The Clio having a dive to the inside at the hairpin, getting the move done. The Mazda was trying to come back at the second to last corner, actually gets it on 2 wheels around that particular turn, and he's doing everything he can. He's got much more straight line speed in the Buzzbox. However, it's a very short run from the final corner to the finish line, and the Clio would keep the position, but that was an incredibly close finish between them pair. Sure enough, Hockenheim had produced plenty of close racing. Our second race, we would go to the Sonoma Short Circuit, a track that I absolutely love, and the game had started me on pole for this one, which is always nice. The grids are now random again, so I'm not guaranteed to be at the back, which was lovely. Yeah, as we came up through this turn 1, turn 2 section, and so on, the Clio that we're following, the front wheel drive cars are going to struggle off the line. I lost a couple of places to a Lamborghini and a Camaro. Gets the Lamborghini back again on the run towards the uphill chicane. Now he's looking for a way past the Camaro as they run down this sort of semi-brack straight. There's a little bit of a crash further back. There's a slightly laggy, dodgy thing going on further back. The Clio can just simply breeze past the Chevy on the inside, while the muscle car has got a fair amount of straight line speed, and so Clio much more composed through this fast section. This is a really tough section for cars down here. In these vehicles, some may just-ish be flat out, but it's very easy to have some big accidents. Further back, we had an Escort was trying to make a move on another Buzzbox. This is not a place you really want to be too wide. Getting overtakes done through here is incredibly difficult. It's very easy, as I said, to have big accidents when you're travelling down this part of the track. The Escort was looking, he tries to get to the inside. This is one of the fastest corners on the track, and he does get to the inside of the Mazda. There's a little bit of a bump between them, and as we see sort of the chain reaction, that little bump would come in very important to the Mazda's race. So he got it a little sideways, coming through that very fast corner, and yeah, he kind of used the escort to kind of steady himself, and it got away without having, it didn't look like he lost a huge amount. However, in doing so, suddenly there's a Jeep now right on his tail. As they come up towards this first corner, the Jeep has an awful lot of straight line speed. The Mazda feels like he has to go defensive, runs a little bit wide through this next section, and the Jeep pounces with all of his straight line speed, manages to get the Wagoneer up the inside, and the Jeep goes past, and the Mazda is forced to take a slightly funny line. And the problem is, the second you start getting forced to do that, when there's so many cars close by, they just all file through. Now, it's a Civic up the inside. I'm not sure if the Civic didn't clip the curb, and that bounced the Civic out wide. The Mazda had nowhere else to go. He had to go out wide, and now there's a Datsun right behind him. The RX-7 goes very defensive into the next corner. He fends the Datsun off through that part as a Dino goes for a spin. However, the Datsun has so much acceleration, you can simply out-drag him down the next part of the track. That's all caused from one little sideways moment almost a lap before. The poor Mazda loses 4 places. However, this group wasn't done yet. The Wagoneer was again proving to be a very difficult vehicle to pass. This one not quite as suited to Sonoma as the one at Hockenheim had been. 2 fast corners around here. It's 3 wide into the final corner. Datsun pounces up the inside of the Civic. The Mazda slightly outbrakes himself, gives the Wagoneer a bump that's got a bit of a pinball shot going on, or pull shot, going on there, that knocks the Jeep into the Civic. The Civic does lose out slightly. It's the Datsun that makes the most of the situation, getting past all of them in that final hairpin. Yeah, was quite a busy race further back. For me, I didn't have quite as lucky a race. My TV used to playing up slightly in this one, so while I did lead for the first couple of laps, it went off at one point. I got it back on before losing too much time, but I did surrender the lead to the Clio. After a few laps, I had worked and caught up to the back of the Renault, and I was getting ready to prepare an all-out assault for the lead. Unfortunately, the slightly tail-happy nature of the Alpha got the better of me. Going through the very fast section, I got it slightly out of shape through the first part, which meant I ended up bouncing across the curbs through the next part, and that put it sideways. And that was my challenge. There was going to be no close fight for the lead in this one. That was, pretty much me done and dusted. Had to settle for second at that point. The Wagoneer would continue to be a pain in the arse to find a way past. This time the RX-7 was trying around the outside to the final turn. The Ferrari Dino had joined in. A Buick that got turned around at the start was coming to join in this fight as well, as they continued to squabble over the lower part of the top 10. Yeah, it was great to see. There's lots and lots of close racing in this one. Not necessarily always at the front, but there was always something going on around here, which was really good to see. A Lamborghini Miura had got things wrong through turn 1 and very nearly caused a lot of problem as all of this group of cars comes steaming through, and still nothing could quite find a way past the Wagoneer. It had too much acceleration for any of them to really quite be able to deal with it. The Buick gets really brave around the outside, trying to get through that chicane uphill. Couldn't quite do it, had to back out and lost a little bit of time. But this group of cars were really very close for a large portion of the race. I think the Buick misses his braking point, runs a little bit wide, and still the Buzzbox cannot find a way past the Jeep. He can just do enough. He's just got enough acceleration out of these turns that the Mazda just couldn't find a way past. Now the Lamborghini was having a look at getting past the Buzzbox, and then, as I said, too wide through there is a very scary thing to do. In the end, the Lamborghini backed out of it. It's a very tough overtaking position through these very fast corners. They are lovely corners to drive, but very hard to get cars too wide through there safely. Towards the front, and it was a Datsun that was catching up to the back of the Camaro. He'd held third for much of the race. However, that little mistake, dipped a wheel on the dirt, is not what you want to be doing through there. Very fast corner. He got away with it. It's very easy to do that and have a big spin. He got away without having a big accident. However, the Datsun would simply fire up the inside at the hairpin, which would promote him up to third place. Yeah, it's you're very lucky to get away with such a minor thing if you run a little bit wide through that corner. At the front, and after my spin, it was the Clio that would go on to to take a victory. Fastest lap times between a few of us were pretty damn close. However, with all of the action and sort of the work some vehicles had to do to get through the field, yeah, things were quite spread out for some of the positions. A slight shame about my TV deciding it didn't want to play, and a slightly oversteery Alpha could have been a very interesting fight for the lead here. But if I'm going to get beaten by something, can't complain too much if it is the Williams Clio. We came on to the final lap. These guys were still fighting. The RX-7 was still trying to find a way to get past the Wagoneer, and unfortunately they're coming up to some back markers at a slightly inopportune moment. They do their best to try and get out of the way. The Jeep has kind of a big dive, slightly bounces off the side of the Subaru, and then there's that four-wheel drive traction as they leave the hairpin. The Jeep can just fire itself out of the corner in the way that the RX-7 just can't, and will then go to outdrag the Mazda to the line. Yeah, I would imagine quite an infuriating race, being stuck the whole time looking at the back of the Wagoneer and being unable to find a way past. For our final race, we went to Brands Hatch, the full GP circuit, and of course we had to try out the rain, and there is an awful lot of rain for these cars. Now, all the previous races, I was kind of just testing the servers almost with this first one, so we only had 16 people in the first couple of races. For this final one, we got up to 19, although they were still being slightly dodgy with the Xbox sending out invites. But yeah, we had up to 19 cars in this one, so it's likely to be a little bit more frantic. And sure enough, around the first corner, there were lots of cars being too wide. Just about seeing the distance, and it was a Subaru Brat found a puddle and went very, very sideways. Did well to keep the car on the road and pointing in the right direction. Yeah, considering the amount of cars we had and the conditions it was in, the first few corners went remarkably smoothly. Unfortunately for said Subaru Brat, an MX-5 got a slight twitch off a curb, and the tiniest of bumps would send the Subaru round in the middle of the road. The Capri here got away with the, well, he took the most of the damage with the Brat spinning. However, again, everyone got through the stricken Brat really well, which is always nice to see. I started further down the order this time, was making good progress on the opening lap, getting up the inside of a Sierra, and then it was my turn to have a look and see what I could do about this Capri. My Alpha, incredibly fast. Again, around here, the Alpha was a really, really good car. Unfortunately, the very, very lightweight nature of this one would be its undoing. And yeah, in brief flashes, it was really fast. I breezed up the inside of the Capri, but it was incredibly difficult to drive in the rain. It didn't really matter quite at what point you were in the field at the start of this race, certainly. Again, it was much a case I had no idea quite where to look. There was so much action going on. This was fighting over 17th and 18th place as we came on to the second lap. The Nissan had a look at trying to go around the outside of turn one. That's a long way to go. Very difficult to make that particular maneuver stick. The Lamborghini, you can see him struggling, sliding his way down the hill as a lot of cars were doing. The Nissan gets brave around turn two, and it's all the way around the outside. The Lamborghini tries to get on the power a little too soon. I think they may have involved a bit of a curb as well, and the Alpha ends up spinning around in a circle. Yet lots of cars slipping and sliding. Mistakes were an awful lot easier to do, but there was still plenty of close action at the front, and it was a Lancia Fulvia that was pulling away slightly as this RX-3 was coming under pressure from a Honda Civic as they leave the final corner. The front-wheel drive Civic being able to put its power down just that little bit better than the Mazda. However, the Mazda had the better straight line speed, although he is stuck on the outside for turn one, and the Civic can get his car up the inside, a little bit on two wheels, but he made it through safely, although then again comes the speed of the Mazda to turn two, puts the RX-3 up the inside, and they've only been fighting for 2-3 corners, and suddenly the MX-5 has joined in as well. And that's what happens, as soon as you start fighting in this manner, the RX-3 stuck on the outside, down the next turn, can't really do a huge amount around there, but then he has the acceleration down towards the next corner. As soon as you start fighting like this, swapping position corner after corner, you're really going to slow yourself down. The Fulvia was loving this and could pull away by a huge margin in just these few short corners. The MX-5 was now up alongside the RX-3 after the Mazda and the Honda had a tiniest of bumps when the Mazda got hugely sideways across the puddle there. That's really lucky that didn't end a lot worse across there. He was just far enough ahead of the MX-5 so that when he went sideways, didn't cause a very big accident. Yeah, the puddles are vicious. If you hit them slightly wrong, it can cause all manner of troubles for your car. As I would find out, yeah, as I said, My TZ2 was incredibly difficult to drive in the rain. Lovely car at Hockenheim, a little bit more difficult at Sonoma, but here it was not an easy car to drive at all. Turn 1, I got it a very long way on 2 wheels, which I was worried I was about to tip the car over. It was incredibly fast if you could get everything right. Visibility was terrible as well. If you've ever driven one of these, you will know what I mean when you drive it from cockpit view. You just don't see anything because the windscreen wipers are atrocious. As we came across the river, the car just got pulled completely to the right. I could not stop the car from doing that one. Never had vehicles had that much of a problem down that section. It's just too light. I think it's about 1,400 pounds. This car. I think it was just too light to be dealing with some of the puddles. Would really cause some problems for my Apple, which was a shame. It was a very, very quick car, just incredibly difficult to drive. I wasn't the only one having issues either with the very light cars and the rain not quite going together so well. The MX-5 that had got himself up into second place would have issues coming down the first corner. Just gets it sliding and can't correct the Mazda in time. Again, I had similar issues with the Alfa. The Alfa was quite oversteery at Sonoma, and let alone when you put it in the rain. Yeah, the little lightweight track cars and an awful lot of water, especially some of the standing water, could be slightly problematic. The MX-5 did very well to keep that from going a lot further into the gravel trap. He lost some time, lost the place to the Civic, but again, that could have gone an awful lot worse. There was still plenty of very close racing going on throughout the field. As I said, lots of stuff in lots of different places. This Capri had been stuck behind the Toyota for a good number of laps and just couldn't find a way past. Tried going to the inside. It didn't matter. The Toyota had enough grip to stay around the outside. I was really amazed to see that AE86 hold that around the outside. That's a really long way to keep the car in these sort of conditions. But he made it stick again. The Capri got a really, really good drive down towards the final corner, but the Toyota has the grip through the corners and he's still holding it alongside, although he doesn't quite have the straight line speed of the Capri. The Ford can finally out accelerate the Toyota down towards turn 1. He's just a bit too far back now to try anything, and the Capri would get the position, although he does get a very big slide through that first corner. It was quite lucky the Toyota did a very similar thing, so he didn't lose the position. Back towards the front, and while the Lancia had buggered off, second and third place were back to squabbling again. The Mazda had caught up to the Civic after his little off, and now they were back to fighting for the position. It'd be a rather damp Mazda, I would imagine, as well, having the roof stuck down in these conditions. It's another around the outside attempt from the MX-5, just dipping a wheel on the curb. You've got to be so careful with the curbs around here. That is a very good overtake as well, to get your car past around the outside there. That is not the easiest of manoeuvres. The Civic, though, still very, very close as they run down the hill, although not quite brave enough to have a dive up the inside. The Toyota remained involved in action while the Capri would get past. He would find himself fighting with Subaru Brat. There's a Subaru Impreza in there as well, but you can see ahead of them the Capri and the RX-3 were having an argument over position. There was just, everywhere you looked, there was some close action going on. The Subaru Brat making the most of its four-wheel drive system as he gets alongside up the inside of the Toyota, and not much. I mean, the AE86 done so well for keeping the car around the outside. He tried it again, but it's just not quite a match for the four-wheel drive traction of the Brat. Yeah, certainly having that four-wheel drive system in the rain can be quite useful when it comes to sort of some overtakes such as that one. At the front, though, it was a much simpler, much calmer race for the Lancia Fulvia. It got to the lead on lap 1, and while, again, like fastest laps, there weren't huge differences. The Fulvia did get fastest lap, but it wasn't by a huge amount. The problem is the rest of the field got so busy arguing with one another, and of course, the second you start fighting for position in such a manner, they really slowed each other down and made a few mistakes, whereas the Fulvia was out in front, had a clean run, would get a fairly large gap over the rest of us. But relatively calm victory for the Lancia after the first couple of laps. It was anything but calm further back, though, as we came on to the final lap. While the MX-5 ended up with a relatively comfortable second place, the RX-3, as you saw, was busy fighting with that Ford Capri. And the Civic had all manner of incidents on this final lap and dropped quite a long way back. I don't quite know what went on with that car. It seemed to just completely fall off for the final lap. And he was now suddenly coming back under pressure from the Mazda. The Subaru Brat had caught up to the Capri very, very quickly in the very closing stages of this race. We saw the RX-3 having some decent straight line speed compared to the Civic, and sure enough, it simply outdragged him as we came down the straight. Watching the background, things went disastrously wrong for the Brat that got caught on some puddles and went very sideways into the wall, so that little fight behind them would be all over. The Civic, though, got a very quick run. He's got decent handling around this track, very quick run through the next corner, and he could fire himself up the inside. The Mazda wasn't giving up, though. He kept it around the outside. Again, a little bit of leaning on the Mazda from the Civic there, but they all got through the corner without too many problems. The RX-3 was a little bit slow, got a little bit sideways. Civic has a dive up the inside, but you've got to be really careful, and there's such a huge puddle on the inside there as the Capri outbrakes himself, runs a little bit wide. The Mazda's got the acceleration, that straight line speed of the RX-3 was coming in really quite helpful against this Civic, and while the Honda tries at the final turn, he can get a really good run out of the corner. It's no match for the Mazda's acceleration, so the Mazda would take the final podium spot while the Civic would finish in fourth. Yeah, there was an awful lot of close action going on. Despite all the difficulties of driving these cars in such challenging conditions, there were still lots and lots of close racing. In the end, I think I ended up about 7th. It wasn't the best of race for my Alpha. It really didn't like the rain. But yeah, for our first versus community, it was a lot of fun. It was an awful lot of fun. Hockenheim, as always, Hockenheim delivered with some fantastic racing. I got a little bit unlucky at Sonoma, but again, everywhere we had lots of close racing, and even the challenges of a Brands Hatch with many puddles around. Yeah, we could still get lots and lots of overtaking and so on. Anyway, that is it for this week's FailRace versus the community. The next one shall be held on Thursday, the 24th of September. We will still be on Forza 6, and we're going to be racing the British touring cars. This means we're going to be using the Audi S3, BMW 1 Series, Mercedes A-Class, and the Toyota Offensis. We are not using the World Touring Car Honda Civic. We're going to be running them 4 cars. They're going to be completely stock, untuned. I've always wanted to run the touring cars in a race, see how they all compare. Sure, we can get plenty of close racing. Yeah, it should be very good fun. If you want to sign up and take part, then you can go to our forums. There will be a link in the description. Find the FailRace versus the community section, and you can sign up in there. Anyway, that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.